Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Icon Awards Critiques. Now, that's a little bit different to what we've been doing over the last few days, where we've had the Icon Awards finals judging, which many of you may have had the chance to see, and if not, you can see it live stream. I can't go any further without thanking our sponsor, B&H, who've got behind everything that we're doing here, and we really appreciate them supporting particularly these critiques. And while I say critiques, I also have to mention Critiq. That's Critiq without a U and without an E, another major backer of what we're doing here. We're pretty lucky this morning. We get the one and only Jerry Guionis and, of course, the incredible Susan Stripling. So Jerry's on the panel with Susan, and what we're going to be doing is looking at some of the images that didn't make the awards or didn't make the finals. So just to refresh your memory, yesterday and the day before at the finals, we looked at all the images that were in the top 10 and had scored a minimum of 80 or higher, which meant they were award winners already. But of course, what happens with all those images that the judges judged that got 79 or 75 or even lower? Well, we wanted to take those images and use them as an opportunity to help educate and share with you what could be done to make them better. Why didn't they receive an award? Which is different to what we did yesterday, where we said, why did it win an award? Now, if that's confused you, it's got as much to do with my accent as anything else, but there you go. I understand that translations will be available. Is that right, Jerry?
In English, Australian, Canadian, American.
Now, Jerry's moved my charts here. Jerry, what are you doing to me, Jerry? Okay. Our first category, if you like, that we're going to look at this morning and for the next half hour will be couple together wedding day or bride or groom alone wedding day. And the way it's going to go is like this. We're going to bring an image up. You guys will see it. We'll see it. And Jerry and Susan are going to discuss the pros and cons, the good and the bad, and give you a few little insights and tips as to what could be done to raise and elevate this image to a higher level or more points, if you like. So first of all, I'll just get them to very quickly say hi. Jerry?
How you doing, guys? So it's an absolute pleasure to be here and giving you this feedback. I know that all of us, we wouldn't be where we are today without feedback like this. And sometimes it can sting a little bit, but that's okay. It's funny because when the judges give you a great score, we often say they got it right. And when they give you a score that you didn't believe you wanted or deserved, you think that they're wrong. The fact is, it's all subjective. It's all okay, but it is a process. So we're going to have fun today, give you some value and tell you how we can improve these images and take our work to the next level. Because trust me, we've all made these mistakes.
Susan Stripling.
Yeah.
Say hello.
Hi. I mean, honestly, like when people ask what has been the single most influential thing on my photography career in terms of becoming a better artist, it was print comp. And it wasn't getting an 82 or an 85. It was getting a 72 and crying in the bathroom. And like we still, well, you don't because you can't enter because you own the competition. But those of us who still enter, we still get really bad scores. I have some that didn't crack an 80 that I think the judges were dead wrong on. It's a process, but it is the single best for me education just around. So I'm really glad that we're continuing it on. It makes me really happy to be involved in it.
And of course, between Susan and Jerry, we can get representation from East Coast and West Coast. And of course, for those who haven't figured it out, I'm not from the UK or New Zealand. I'm an Aussie, and I'm from Perth in Western Australia. I have been around this environment over here at Las Vegas and this conference for about 23 years, and I am also a Grand Master of the Icon fraternity, as is Susan. Yeah. And of course, Jerry is a 4,000 times Grand Master or something.
Jerry is a Jerry Master. He's the only one.
Before we get into I have one question. If you have to be an owner to not enter, what does that make me? Because I can't enter either.
Oh, boy.
That's all right. Okay, let's get on with it. Let's have a look at this first image, guys. What do you think? This is from, obviously, Couple Together Wedding Day. And again, I don't know the exact score, but we know that it didn't get an award. So we're going to find out what some of the reasons may have been and what could be done to improve it.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that this came up because this is one of my favorite types of lighting, which is beautiful rim lighting all the way around. It's handled very well because other than just at that little bit of the back of the subject on the left, it is wrapping all the way around them. The thing that I think that could really bring this up to the next level is a little bit more context and a little bit more gesture. Because it's really easy when you're doing a silhouette or you're doing a rim light just to have the couple get really close together and hold hands. And then you have cool light. But what is the moment here? Did they just get married? Are they brother and sister? Like, what's happening? The hands together sort of merge. Anytime you touch something in kind of a silhouette like that, it becomes a bit of a amorphous blob. So the hands, separating them out, having them have a gesture between them, leaning in for a kiss, something that tells us a little bit more of a story would definitely make this go significantly higher, I think.
It's great feedback. You know, there's so many ways we can look at images. If you went closer in this photograph, and let's say we cropped into their foreheads and cropped just underneath the join, then you'll form almost like a little love heart on that particular area. So this, we don't really have context. We don't know where this photograph is. If there was some ambience, if there was those beautiful bokeh and Christmas lights or some city in the background or something, it would work. But because there's so much negative space, that represents mystery, represents tension, but we're photographing a romantic moment here. And I agree with you. You know, I've made the mistake so many times when doing a silhouette. And if you get them kissing, which we're often tempted to do, or their noses touching, then it's not a silhouette. A silhouette implies you're seeing form and shape, and it's all beautiful. So get nice and close there. So if this one is either really tight or a lot more ambience to give us a little bit of understanding as to where they are. But the flash technique is great because traditionally, I think where I got it wrong, I don't know about you, Susan, but when I would do a backlit shot with flash, I would have the flash too low and too close behind the couple. And now you get light underneath here in the nose and it dwindles. So try to get, when you get backlit flash, I don't know about you, but I find about 6 feet behind. It wraps the whole body. And what I've done is I bought a white monopod so I can see in the dark, right?
Stop it.
Yes, white monopod with a flash. And I get Melissa, she just holds it. I go, hold it behind the guy. If you're photographing a hetero couple, he's normally bigger. And then point it right directly to the actual couple. Now, here's the thing. If you want a silhouette and you want to do something a little bit different and just elevate it a little bit. Let's say, for example, you and I were the couple.
Not allowed to be a couple.
Let's say if you and I are the couple, then if we're nice and close, if the flash is behind us, let's say she's gorgeous, which she is, and I'm not so gorgeous, which I'm not, or am, whatever. I'm not as, she's a 10, I'm like a 6.5. We're okay with that. But I needed to, a Vegas 10. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. That is the most brilliant thing, and it was caught on camera. No. I'm going to stay here the whole day with you. All right. So if it's us two, and if I need prettying up, right? So she goes back a little bit further, and now I come about a few inches this way. What happens is the flash will bounce on her cheek and then hit me. So what's going to happen is she gets the rim and I get that soft light. So I get the prettier light. We balance up the equation. And maybe I could be like a New York 7? New York 7. Wearing a ski mask.
This is going to be a long day. I just wanted to butt in and challenge your 6. I think you're being generous.
Wait. Look, you think you have the utmost love and respect for Melissa.
Yes, absolutely.
Would she choose someone that's not a good guy?
One of the things I've learned about perfection is it doesn't exist. So that means even the most perfect person will make a mistake, and we're privileged to know the one mistake Melissa has made in her life. I just wanted to add, having slightly different background, although I should qualify, I have shot 1,000 weddings, so although people see me for other work, one of the things that happens when you have so much real estate on an image that has no detail, it amplifies the effect of the areas that have detail. So as the guys are talking about this rim lighting and things like that, and those edges where you got blobs of light, they become more prominent and more pronounced. So you've got to be even more precise with how you use those areas because of this large area where nothing's happening. We get hyper-focused on those areas. All right, so we look at another one. So we're going to go from a couple to a single. Okay, so let's start with you this time, Jerry. What do you think?
Well, it's interesting because the first time I looked at this, I thought of Susan Stripling.
I was like, oh,
And I know that many of us, what we like to do is play the yin yang vibe, right? We look at black and white and we have some fun. Susan did an incredible photograph that won the photojournalism grand or wedding grand. Yes, she won the wedding grand. I actually think I helped a little bit. I sort of said, hey, I think you should put it over here and not over here. Yeah, yeah, no. Yeah, there we go. So in case you don't know, and maybe Jason, our editor over here, my friend here, Jason, can actually find that image. And with your permission, we can include it as a bit of inspiration. We'll look after you. So what it basically was that Susan did an incredible photograph of a heterosexual couple, and then we've got the groom on the white side, and then the bride on the black side, and then we had them holding hands, and it was just a beautiful play of light. So now, I'm not saying that this photographer looked at the photograph and emulated it, and certainly I've done stuff like this as well. A couple of things I want to point out. I love the idea of doing this. What I personally like to do, and this is not saying this is what the photographer had to do, whenever I see a join in a crease of a wall or different colors or textures, I tend to want to mesh it together by cropping into the head or the hairline. And what happens is, does that make sense? And if you do that, it just blends everything in. So whenever you get an odd background, go for it. Now, if this gentleman has my problem, has quite a generous forehead. I don't call it a forehead, I call it a 5 head. Maybe that's the reason for the 6. Now, I have a big brain. I need housing for it, right? So with someone like me, if you want to crop just above the brow, because if you crop right over here into my hairline, it looks like my head goes on forever, okay? So you want to crop above the brow or into the hairline. See? But you'll never forget it for the rest of your life, will you? And also, if you're photographing someone like me, bring my chin up and bring my forehead away from the camera, not towards the camera, because then you're going to have a bigger problem. Maybe talk about the lighting, Susan.
Yeah. So what I would really love to see, in terms of lighting, and I'm not even going to talk about facial lighting, I'd like to see just a little bit of lighting coming from behind. I can't, obviously I'm not going to try to assume what this sort of situation is, but the white part would be really lovely to feel like light was coming through it. Because what happens is when you look to the left of the frame, everything that's dark gets lost behind. Now, I'm not saying you have to go crazy with a backlight, like you don't have to etch it out like in the way the Lovely Maker did in the image before this, but just a kiss of that. Jerry gave up and left. I'm on my own here. With a kiss of light coming from the back, we would be able to see a little bit of the line of the shoulder, how the hair is separated from the background, so we don't just really lose that person. And then once you've done that, maybe a little kiss of light on the face so that the eyes aren't lost quite back into the sockets quite as far. And I'm not saying it has to be a ton. We're not talking about a, ProPhoto B10 at full power. Just a little something to carve out those deep shadows so we don't get lost in any of the kind of crevices of the face.
I love this, by the way. This is so we've never done this before. We've never done it before together. It's not fair. So to do with lighting, let's say if you're a beginner and you don't know where to start and you do have a light source, I suggest that you turn the face away from the light source, start there, and then keep on turn the face until this eye socket is completely lit. I say eye socket because we often cut on the corner of the eye, which we have here. Turn it until we get there. Now we get catch lights, we get a clean light, and if you're shooting on the shadow side of the face, we get depth, dimension, shadow, form, and it looks great.
Could you guys just address the angle of the head and the expression? Not saying it's good or bad, but what's just a feedback on that?
So feedback, it's a passive expression. I guess with his hand gesture, it's quite a confident look. Often, I've been saying this for years, Peter Hurley coined a phrase squinch, and I'm like, I've been saying hint of a squint my whole career, and it just sounds so much cooler the way he says it, but I'm going to continue to say hint of a squint. When you're looking at someone passively, for example, it's just normal. And then if you just give me a little tension in here, it adds a bit of confidence and mystique. Also, you got to be careful too, because with the way you position the face, everyone's a little bit different on the female face and the male face. For example, watch me. Like let's look down the barrel of the camera right in the middle. Watch what happens when a guy brings his chin down. You see how I look like a serial killer? Now, it also makes my eyes appear larger. So if you have a person with smaller eyes, you drop the chin. Now, when a woman does it, usually there's a bit of a come hither look. Would it make sense? So you got to be careful and watch it as well, because if I drop that chin, this forehead's going to go close to the camera. So bring that chin up. And then you're like, well, wait a second, I'm creating two problems. Which is the lesser of the evils? Go with that one, or just do whatever you want and spray and pray and fix it in Photoshop.
So Jerry, Jerry, how does a male face do a come hither?
Oh, so it's down but to the side.
Otherwise, have you seen Cape Fear with Robert De Niro? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So turn the face, hint of a squint, have a bit of fun. And also another thing, you want to get a bit of an expression from a guy and you can't get that out of them, get the best man next to you. Get him, because normally your best mate's your best mate because he makes you laugh. Have him next to you, make them laugh, and then sometimes wait till the end of the laugh, and that's when you grab it.
You remind me of something. A key principle is that we need to remember when we press the trigger, or the expression on a face is an outward expression of what the person is thinking at that moment in time. And you can dictate that by what the conversation and what you're helping them think about. So if you say something, they have to consider what you're saying, whatever that is. And as you get to know your subject matter or your subjects or your clients, you can use the right terminology to get them to think about things. So if I looked at this lovely lady in front and I said something like pearl necklace, and you think, oh, I love pearls, right? And there's an expression which comes on just for a split second, which is better than saying to somebody, please smile. Anyway, let's move on. We've got a couple here. Okay, Susan, tell us what's going on here and give us a few things that could take this to a higher level.
Yeah, so this is, you remember we were talking about silhouettes that need gesture? This has really nice gesture. I love the hand that's dropped down in the back. It's holding the veil. I like how they're connected together. They're clearly like having a moment together. The person on the right, their feet aren't like jammed together. It feels like a real believable moment. The light is also handled really nicely behind them to make a silhouette on the wall, which is something that not a lot of people do. I think it's really it's innovative and different. That said, I think controlling the light a little bit better would help us stay in the center of the image, because if you look on either side, the columns that go up and the wall that goes up on either side of each dark column is bright. And it's close to the same brightness behind the couple in parts. Also, the ceiling is very bright. And that dome right above them, that whatever it is, it just pulls my eye up and out. I'd like to stay in the center. And then also, when you're going to put your subject against something that has lines or texture in it, be careful where those lines intersect, because if you come in really, really close, it looks like there's a line that comes out of the forehead and cuts right down through that other silhouette. So if you can fix it when you're shooting it, absolutely. But if you see it later and you're like, oh, crumbs, look what I've done. This is why the Lord invented generative fill, or Adobe, same thing.
Amazing. I love that feedback. I think this is a very clever way, wouldn't you agree, to make something out of nothing. So let's say you need a hero shot to end off with, and you've got really nothing, and it's quite dark. It could be anywhere. And then all of a sudden you backlight with flash but the door, and then you get a little bit of texture. Great finale. And here's the thing, guys, is that sometimes an image might be solid for what it is. It's not conducive of getting up there in the awards space. So if you look at the iconawards.com website, you'll see the clear definitions on what it'll take to in the awards space. So an 80 to an 84 means above average skill and technique in most areas. So we're not saying it's perfection. We're not saying it's original. It could be a cliche image, but it's an above average version of it. So in this case, again, saleable shot. It's fantastic. It's really good. Here's a couple of things. So see how we've actually backlit with flash, but we've hit the door. And what Susan said is that that light is spilling around quite a lot. Well, here's what happens. Imagine backlighting the flash to the couple. Then that light will bounce on the little skin because they're wearing white and then you get this sort of natural vignette happening all over it. And the key is not to overexpose or put too much flash power in there, and it'll sort of dwindle gradually. So I'm not telling you that's what you should do. Just modify it, yeah. So it takes it away a little bit and it just blends in. And that might way you get that beautiful backlight and that rim and then that sort of organic vignette as well.
Thanks, guys. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at another one. There you go. Bride Alone. That's it.
So first of all, I love it. Like it's so funny. Like when these images come up and like we know they didn't make an 80, but there's still so much beauty in these images that I think should really be celebrated. And, you know, solid saleable work is really freaking good because it's not easy to make solid saleable work. But there are a couple of things that I just see right away. First of all, the light that's on the wall right behind the subject's head, that's so bright, that little wedge of light on the column, that I keep sort of skimming through. The light that comes down and the light on the face are very similar, that back wall and the face. And then the brightest thing is right next to it. So my eye comes down and then it actually leaves my subject and goes into the wall. And we don't want that. It also looks like the subject's pushed really hard against the wall. And as a female human who is very self-conscious about my arms, and a lot of my subjects say, I'm self-conscious about my arms. And even if you're not, it's never, I don't want to say never good, but it's not necessarily the most flattering pose to have a body part pushed against a wall. Because when you push flesh against something that's flat, it has to go somewhere else, which means it pushes out. And it just doesn't look quite comfortable. I really wish I had found that slice of light myself, though. I think it's beautiful.
Yes, I think your critique was fantastic. And then the way you would just soften that a little bit is just bring the elbows up a slight touch. So when you bring the elbows up and it feels a little bit chicken wingy, then lean towards the camera and you correct the perspective of that body part. And if that is still an issue and you just wanted to soften the arm, knowing that a lot of women are conscious of their arms, even the slimmest of women, everyone, and even guys for that matter, but place the hair over or just soften it with the veil. It's an easy way to do it.
And listen, I also just really want to make sure that I'm never looking at a subject and making any judgments about their body and saying, I need to fix this. It's just when you push something like that, it doesn't make it look like what it looks like, right? So, and it also looks like she's leaning hard against the wall. And it's not a hard moment, it's a soft moment. So even just touching those shoulders against the wall without putting body weight into it, you wouldn't feel so much tension where it hits the wall.
Thanks, guys. Invaluable comments, don't you reckon? You're very lucky to have such two talented photographers sitting here talking like this, I tell you. Okay, let's have a look at another one. But back to couples.
Okay, I'm assuming, doesn't matter, but I'm assuming a same-sex couple, and that's got no indifference to what we're talking about here. But I've photographed two people wearing suits. Okay, so they, them, we don't know. But either way, what I'm thinking about here is when I've actually ever photographed through a translucent piece of glass or any material, anything like that, it's really tough. Because if you don't get that body part or that face close to the glass, then you don't see the shape and it looks more alien-like. If you go too close and squish it, whether it's a bust, whether it's a cheek, it can look a little bit weird. So what you basically need is contrast. So here, well, you have a lot of light, but you want light on the faces and a little bit of separation on their faces. And less so, it's either you get that nice sort of outline where it's semi-abstract or go all the way. And I would say what's missing here is touching of hands. Yeah, the hands are sort of cut off. I feel like here's the thing, guys. Posing needs to be amplified. So if this is romantic, the hands need to be romantic and vice versa. Otherwise, I just don't believe the moment. If everything in a photograph is screaming romance, connection, or they're about to kiss, then that's what I want to see. That's what I want to feel.
So what I'm seeing here is more of a concept than an execution, right? Like this concept is so freaking cool. It has such impact when it comes around. I wish I had thought of it. But like Jerry said, either bring everything closer to whatever the translucent thing is, or if I were doing this, I would actually move everything away because I think the bottom where the two suits are kind of coming together has this gorgeous kind of ethereal moment. And if the arms were just up around the bodies and you could just see the beautiful shape of heads and bodies like commingling, it then translates it up into almost more of an abstract art piece. And I think it's stuck a little bit too much between art and realism right now. It's also really pretty.
I'm learning a lot too here. I love this. Because no one knows everything. And the minute we change ideas, it's going to be affected in the next time we shoot. It stays in your brain. I remember doing this kind of a shot with a couple, and the minute you place someone behind a piece of glass, you're going to be less saturated, right? So what I ended up doing with the couple, I actually got them to hold a piece of champagne with this gorgeous, yellow, gorgeous liquid, and all I saw was that beautiful color coming through and everything else was muted in camera. So don't forget that you've got more than just hands and gesture. You've got props or different things that we all recognize to just elevate something beyond, what we see. But certainly not everyone would have seen this. Not everyone would have seen this. And it's a great way to start an album. Something a little bit different, a little bit abstract, a bit fun.
And I think that what's also so powerful about this is we as judges, and people who are entering, we get so inspired by what we see. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, ooh, how can I take this and take it into my world and make it mine? And that is something that I think is also just so powerfully educational, is it fires the concepts in your head. And then you see this and you build on that. And then you build on that. And then someone sees what you did and they build on that. And it just makes the industry better.
That's good stuff, guys. Let's move on. Let's see if we can get a couple more done. Here's another one, Groom Alone.
Okay, nice balance of light. I like the way that we've got the light right in the background, so just separate him from the background. We've got some kind of continuous light, whether it's a flash or it doesn't really matter. It's nicely handled. There's a couple of things that we can actually just tweak a little bit, just from a fashion sense. When a guy's walking, when his hand just sort of flops beside him, if there's no gesture, it feels a bit static. So if you've caught him, I'm assuming, and again, I apologize if I'm wrong, I'm assuming that we posed him to look like he was walking. If we want to make that look more believable, get his hand either forward or back, or both hands in the pocket. A good fashion rule, whenever you're wearing a jacket, if you're wearing one button, it's always done. If you're wearing two, always never. Three buttons, always maybe never. Apart from that fashion rule, it slims the waist, it brings you in. Also, you get a little bit of breathing space beyond your arms. Now, do you see how his foot is static in the front? If we just lifted up his heel a little bit on the back, we get a sense that he's actually walking. Now, this is the kind of shot, even if we did that, I feel like, and I think it's also important to identify, it's important that we identify that even if those things were done, I still feel this is good, solid, saleable work, consistent with professional practice, which means I believe it would probably get a 75 to 79 at its best, even at its best version. So sometimes it's good, it's saleable, it's rock solid. And when with competition, you've sort of got to filter that out. And I'm sure, I don't know about you, Susan, but have you looked back at the entries from maybe 5-10 years ago and say, why would I enter that? Because that would have got a 73. And I'm not discouraging anyone to not enter the work unless it's brilliant. But what I'm getting at is, as you get more sophisticated, your palette grows, and then you learn the approach and you start to self-filter, and you understand it. And there's a bit of strategy involved. What do you think about that, Tony?
So I'm just going to ask you guys to maybe just address, you were talking about the posing and the feet and all of that. The idea of lifting the back heel, etc., but rocking a little bit, or how do you put energy? Here's the question. How do you put energy into a situation where it's a photograph of someone looking like they're doing something, but you've posed them in a static way? So rocking feet, all of that. So tell us a bit more.
I make them actually do something. Yeah. Like if I were shooting this myself, I would have that back foot stay where it is, and then I would just have that front foot keep coming up and going down. Right? Because this looks like this person might have been comfortable 5 minutes ago, but isn't necessarily comfortable right now. And part of why I can tell is the eyes are cut towards the camera and the expression is a little unsure. So even something so incredibly simple, it has to have intent. I want to look at this and be like, who is this person? Where are they going? Where have they come from? Instead of looking at it and going, that's a really lovely picture of that person. What story is going on? And don't be afraid to, you're the photographer. You will click the shutter when you're ready to click the shutter, right? Have them move, swing the arms, look around. Anything that can make it feel more like it's a moment that's happening, even though you're trying to capture something very precise.
I'm loving this so much. So guys, I talk about the 5 steps to a great photograph. In my opinion, light is number 1, location number 2, pose number 3, technique number 4, and emotion number 5. And when I talk about this, I talk about it in a way where you're deconstructing a pose. Because if you just pose someone and then you photograph it, you're photographing a pose. If you add a moment or emotion to it, you're actually photographing a moment. Because if you're photographing a bride or a groom, just remember, you don't want to look like you do every other day of the week. A bride's not going to get her hair and makeup for 2 hours to look like she does watching Netflix. It's not the same way. Does that make sense? So what I'm getting at is, if you were to pose this gentleman and you wanted emotion, pose it first. You're up to step number 4. You've got the light, you've got the location, you got the pose and the technique. Now you need emotion. Whether it's that little hint of a squint or doing it in motion, adjusting a cuff, having a laugh, like looking at his bride or groom, whatever it may be, just break that tension, break that moment, and then you deconstruct it. And the cool thing about that is it breaks the perfection of a photograph. It breaks the perfection of the pose, which makes it look real.
What is that?
Invaluable. Thanks, guys. I was about to ask you a question and you answered it before I asked it. That's really clever, Jerry. I'll give you a 7 now. All right, let's go to one more. This is couple again.
Is this my brain or my looks?
I'd move on while you're ahead, mate. Move on while you're ahead. What about this one?
Okay, so this is actually one of my favorite types of images to critique because I feel like it's a trap that a lot of us fall into, which is pretty people, pretty scene, right? This looks nothing like anywhere I ever photograph. I work in New York. This is not what the Hudson River looks like. There's no bodies or rats floating in the background. It looks like the air is fresh, like I don't know what's happening. Any photographer would lose their absolute mind to be able to shoot here. It's incredible. But we've lost a little bit of the portrait in the portrait. So when you have a scene that is so incredible, the scene itself, I feel like, really has to stand alone as a photo. If we took the couple out, is this a good photo? Yes. If we took the couple as they are right now and put them on a plain background with no scene, does it hold up? Not really. And that's what makes scenes like this so incredibly hard, because you have to Tony Hewitt the landscape and then Jerry Guionis the people, which, thank you, I will be here for the next 10 minutes. Jerry's like, this is the last time she gets a microphone. So the couple is adorable. Like, I don't want to take away from the moment. They will look at this photo and be beside themselves. If this were me, I would hang it over my sofa. Because, well, I can't because I have Tony Hewitt pictures actually hanging over my sofa, which is true. There is a little disconnect between the pose of the couple and the scene. It doesn't necessarily feel like they both go together. So I would work your way through this. If I shot this, I would include it in the gallery 100%. But in terms of pose, she's a little hunched over. His hands are sort of like they're about to touch her arms, but they're not. It's like an in-between moment. And I feel like maybe the photographer got a little bit caught up in how great this scene is and taking another extra like 5 minutes and being like, we've got these great moments for the couple. Let me make something for competition. And then finessing the pose a little bit more, and then you have the best of both worlds.
I love those comments. They're amazing. I totally agree with everything you said. As far as the groom's concerned, I want to bring attention to something. We often, when we're photographing a heterosexual couple, we'll always pay attention to the female pose, the S-curve, point the toe, bend the knee, shift the weight back, shoulders back, lean the chest forward. What we don't do, many of us, we totally ignore the body language of the groom. He's standing so static. So what do? Yeah, come a little bit closer, but put the weight on his back leg. Put the weight on his back leg and then just slightly bend his knee. And what I always give metaphors when I teach this. If you, I'm going to stand up, I'm going to lose the feed here, but if I was to stand up and then just put my weight evenly distributed, and if I put my weight on my back leg, now my front knee is pointing an arrow, shifting the energy to the person that I love. So think of it that way. So if this is in love, but the feet are static and the hands in the pocket, this is saying I love you, and the legs and the hands are saying I don't really care. Everything has to say I love you if you're doing a romantic shot in this picturesque fairy tale scene.
And also, if you look at the way, the subject on the right is standing, it looks like there's so much tension in the body, like maybe they're not comfortable where they're standing. Like if they separated their legs, they might fall off. So that's another thing to also be mindful when you're in a scene like this. If you're putting them up on something that they could fall off of, make sure they're comfy up there.
I'm just going to add something
and it rocks.
And the rocks, yeah. I'm just going to add something here that in terms of competition print, because it's in a wedding category, people are focused on the couple, but be aware that inconsistencies in the treatment of your image will also drag the judge's attention. In this particular image, unfortunately, just to the right of that big rock, there are rocks that are out of focus. So there's an inconsistency in the focus. It doesn't look natural. So a judge looking at an image, and judges are trained to look for detail and things that work and don't work. And you have this sort of unnatural fall away of focus, sharpness to focus. So we can sometimes think it's a wedding shot, what focus on the couple, everything else doesn't matter. In a competition, particularly in a competition, judges will be looking at everything. And if you do happen to, unfortunately, have a landscape wedding photographer on the panel, they'll find it. Guys, we've actually gone a bit longer than you thought we were going to go. So we're going to have to call it there. We could go on forever. I'm sure you would agree with me that we've been very privileged to have two of the absolute world best sitting together. It was a pleasure to watch you two interact. I think we should have Susan back, Jerry. She's good at this. She's very good at this.
I've had 3 coffees. I'm great.
And to be honest, guys, I actually wasn't even meant to be here. I'm just filling in for someone because I have an award script to finalise. But absolutely. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting us. So I know that the cameras can't see it right now, but I'm looking around and I'm seeing all my metaphoric children of all the images that have come literally through our fingertips and that were held at our house. And the judging was chaired by the brilliant Tony Hewitt, really leading the judges into a unified purpose to bring out the best in photographers. But just so you know, guys, what I want you to know is don't focus on the result of anything you do. And I'm just saying in life, but in photography, if you're saying, well, I'm going to photograph and I'm not going to be happy if this wins a silver or a silver distinction or a gold, and I'm going to hedge my bets, and my joy will only be because I get an award. I get the goosebumps. Look at that. I get the goosebumps from the process of creating. I strongly encourage you to actually focus on the process, the repetition, the experience, the practice of doing what you need to do to get better. And you know what? I look at the gallery, I don't get intimidated, I get inspired. It's as simple as that. There is an image of me there, then you've got to, it's a long story, and it'll actually unlock something very special, and you can win a prize if you notice it. But I'm just letting you know, if you're watching from home, please, guys, I want you to get in there. Don't be afraid. This is a safe place, and we want you to feel nurtured and know that you're going to grow, and we all got to grow together. So thank you for your trust and your support. And Tony, you're awesome.
I just wanted to also thank B&H for getting behind what we're doing here, Critiq for doing what they do, and also being behind it. A reminder too that you can buy the Icon Awards collection book. And look, that's a fantastic collection of some of the best work. It's inspirational. Have a look. You'll see some of your heroes in there. And who knows, perhaps if you've entered and you take on board some of the inspiration and ideas, you'll be in that book soon, if not already. We're going to be back in about 15 minutes with the next category. The next category that we're going to look at is going to be wedding party, family and friends, wedding photojournalism. But I thanked Jerry. We are privileged to have him here, and he should be doing more of this, but he can't be in 17 places at once. He's doing well to being in 10. Jerry, you've moved to an 8. Not in looks, but we'll work on that. And Susan, as always, you're amazing, you're incredible, and bring such a beautiful energy to the education space. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back here in about 15 minutes.
And before you guys go, awards night is tonight, so dress to impress. 8 o'clock, it's happening, but be there at 7:30. The awards night will start from 8, finish at about 10, and we have an after party as well. We have one of my favorite bands here in Las Vegas. She is an incredible singer. It's a combination of Aretha Franklin and Bette Midler. You are going to have the time of your life. So have some fun. We'll see you tonight. Congrats on you guys entering as well. Thank you.